Hello and welcome back to Transfer Review, the first one of the summer. There's going to be quite a few from now on every single Thursday. Joining me today, it's Michael McCubin, and we're doing a slightly different show this week. We're talking about a headline, we're doing some fixes, and then we're doing a transfer shocker, so a slightly different structure to previous years. But kicking off the brand new show, we've got our headline story, and it's Thiago to Liverpool. Why is that, McCubs?
Well, obviously this has been a story that's been kind of doing the rounds a lot in the last month, hasn't it? It's not news to anyone that Thiago could go to Liverpool this summer. But this week, Bayern Munich chief Karl-Heinz Rummenigge admitted the club would be willing to sell Thiago if the right bid was made after he refused a new contract. So to quote him exactly, he said, "It's well known that he told us he'd like to do something new. If a club comes to us to pay an appropriately fair transfer fee, he will take it up." Obviously, Fabrizio Romano has, been front and centre of the reporting on this too. Apparently, according to him, the 29-year-old Spaniard sees Liverpool as his dream club and is pushing for a move there. But Bayern won't budge on their asking price. They're asking for 30 million euros. And that's pretty fair enough. He's not even 30. He's one of the most talented midfielders in the world, and has been pretty key to them over the last 7 years. Obviously, he had a couple of years lost to injury that kind of tainted his spell at Bayern a little bit. But this season, he's been more than back to his best, hasn't he? So for that price, you'd expect that Liverpool would be willing to pay it. However, they are reluctant to pay that fee for him. Obviously, they have gained a reputation in the last few years as being quite shrewd, selling players at quite high prices, quite over their value, and paying kind of under the value of a lot of players, perhaps with the exception of Alisson and Virgil van Dijk. This has obviously led people to speculate about another club, PSG, who could be ready to swoop in if this transfer is not completed. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he'd. Probably wouldn't be as good a move for him just because PSG don't need him in the way that Liverpool could. He wouldn't necessarily improve PSG's midfield in the way that he would Liverpool's. But on that subject, Dougie, as we're kind of speculating over this move, firstly, why do you think he wants to leave? And what do you think he would bring to both of those clubs? Obviously, Liverpool and PSG both have kind of different needs in the midfield area, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Very different needs, very different styles of play. But in terms of why he wants to leave, I wish I knew, to be honest. It's a bit of a surprise to most people. He's still obviously a regular in the side. He's made 37 appearances this term, including 24 in the league, which ranks him about 10th in the squad for overall minutes played. And he's still performing very well. There's no desire from Bayern side for him to go. He just simply doesn't want to sign a contract extension to that contract which expires next summer, and as supposedly he's put his house in Munich up for sale as well, so he's very determined to leave. But I think Bayern Munich, if he was, they had an offer on the table, they wanted him to stay, he's just set his eyes elsewhere. But as I said, he's still performing well. 10.5 progressive passes per 90. He's third for passes into the final third in the squad, which is quite extraordinary when you consider the sort of plethora of central midfielders and number 10s and an attacking talent that Bayern have got throughout that squad as well. And then you marry that with he's second for tackles and interceptions, total tackles and interceptions in the squad behind Alphonso Davies as well, which, considering that he's 10th for minutes played, does shows that he's got two sides of his games. He's not just a metronomic passer. But the crucial thing that sets Thiago apart from most other midfielders is the ability to beat a man in tight space. He's completing 3.6 dribbles per 90 this term. That's the first for central midfielders in Europe, alongside the sort of Jeff Rain Adelaides and Mateo Kovacic's of this world. But in terms of the Liverpool move, he is very, very different to what they currently have in their midfield, which might be part of the attraction, but it also might be part of the factors that have slightly putting them off so far. His 74 passes per game would be second in their squad behind Virgil van Dijk, while his 90.7% pass accuracy would only be topped by Wijnaldum. So there definitely is, his passing, his ability to break the lines with his passing or dribbling would certainly go very much in, very handy to a Klopp side that has looked like it could definitely need some freshening up in midfield for a little while. But he would need to slightly adapt his game. In terms of his pressing, it's probably not as relentless as some of those midfielders, and then that's backed up by the fact he only completes 14.8 pressures per 90. Naby Keita's on above 23, Henderson above 21, Fabinho above 18, and Wijnaldum the lowest on about 15. But you imagine that if, Klopp gets his motivation up him, puts the wind up him, I imagine Thiago will be pressing before too long in that same vein. The only other downside I could see from Liverpool's point of view is that Naby Keita actually played some of his best football of his Liverpool career in the last few games. So in his 9 appearances post-lockdown, 2 goals, 1 assist, average of 1.3 shots, 1.7 key passes and 2.5 dribbles across the whole campaign. Naby Keita, being only 25, do they need his minutes to be reduced by the fact Thiago's coming in at 29? So I think of these two moves, I'm actually probably more pro it from a PSG perspective, who are looking to offload Idrissa Gueye this summer supposedly. Draxler's set to leave. Di Maria, who often plays in midfield or across the front line, is 32. Herrera's 30, as is Gueye as well. So, Thiago at 29 would be a massive decrease on them in terms of age, but would definitely bring a bit of star quality to that midfield, which has looked a little bit workman-like without the absence of Verratti in some games this season. But McCubs, if you had to put your money where your mouth is, where do you see Thiago going? Just Liverpool or PSG or another club?
I think Liverpool. For some reason, I don't see Thiago going to PSG. I feel like if he's going to leave Bayern this summer, he will go to the club that he wants to go to. I don't get the impression that he's the kind of player who'll settle for a sideways or backwards move, and Liverpool's the only real move forward he could make. And judging from what we can see that he is keen on that move, I just feel like he'd rather run his contract down at Bayern than go to PSG. That's my take, I think.
Fair enough. Well, I'm angling for that PSG move. McCubs disagrees, but we want your opinion in the comments down below. And let's move on to our next section.
So welcome to our brand new section of Euro Transfer Review. It is called, the very imaginative title, EFD Fixes. So basically what we're going to do is look at 2 transfer rumours or 2 players who've been linked to clubs, analyse those rumours or those links, and provide alternatives if they don't come off. And we're kicking off with a player who has been touted as a target for a number of clubs this summer, Said Benrahma, because AC Milan are supposedly interested, aren't they, Dukes?
Yeah, totally right. Algerian football journalist Walid Ziani, who works for TZ Foot, claims that AC Milan are interested in signing the Algerian Said Benrahma. And it's not difficult to see why. He had a phenomenal championship campaign, although a quite disappointing playoff final. But 17 goals and 9 assists helped them to that playoff final, where of course they lost to Fulham. He ranked 2nd in the championship for shots per game with 4.1, 9th for key passes with 2.3, and 5th for dribbles with 3.3. So he's clearly too good for the championship. And he's, there is potential in this move in that he's very close friends with Ismail Benacer, supposedly from the Algerian national setup. He's obviously shone in the last few months at AC Milan. So the Nice Academy graduate could be tempted on that front. He's got a contract running until 2022. Brentford are asking for 28 million euros for him, and there is interest from Chelsea too. So if they can't get him, McCubs, what we want to ask is, who could Milan go for?
Yeah, I mean, 28 million is quite a lot considering that they didn't go up, did they? I think if Brentford had gone up, I think it would have been, I guess, a lot higher. But yeah, I mean, there's a couple of alternatives, slightly different players to Benrahma, but ones who would definitely improve AC Milan. First off, Milot Rashica from Werder Bremen would definitely be worth a look at. Obviously, he's been linked to RB Leipzig very strongly this summer, and also Norwich's Emi Buendia, who we have spoken about a lot this summer. I think we've actually kind of recommended him, as it were, to AC Milan before. But our main suggestion is AZ Alkmaar's left winger Oussama Idrissi, who is a bit more in the mould of Benrahma. The 24-year-old Moroccan has been with AZ since January 2017, and his impact has slowly increased over the season. So he kicked off with 9 league goal contributions, that was followed by 14, and then 16 in just 25 Eredivisie games this season just gone. Obviously, that season was curtailed as well, so there would have been scope for him to improve further on that tally. He topped his side for shots on target per 90, and dribbles. So really, everything went through him in that attack. He was really running that not single-handedly, but he really was the focal point. This season also saw him experience European football for the first time, helping AZ Alkmaar to the last 32 of the Europa League. Obviously, they rather disappointingly crashed out to LASK there. But he got 2 goals and 1 assist in 8 games, so not amazing. But for his first season in Europe, not too bad. He averaged 2.1 shots, 2.4 key passes, and 3.8 dribbles per 90. Only 3 players completed more dribbles than him in the competition. So, judging by that, actually, you may have expected him to score and assist a little bit more. So maybe he was a little bit unlucky with that. I don't think we've got the XG stats for the Europa League. But I would expect he was probably underperforming them a little bit. He only has 2 years remaining on his current deal as well. His market value is only 10.8 million, and he's also being linked with Everton. I think this would be it would make a lot of sense for Milan. It's a relatively low risk, obviously a very decent fee. And obviously with kind of football being curtailed in the Netherlands as well, AZ are the kind of side that could probably do with the money right now. Not an expert on their finances, but one of their prized assets. I don't see how much power they would have to keep him, especially with his contract running down, because his value could drop next season, couldn't it? So I think this is I think this would be a pretty good move.
Yeah, I like it a lot as well. I mean, in the limited amount, I've seen it very tricksy, very good on one-on-one, has a lovely disguised through ball as well, looks like a proper player. And as you said, with RZ possibly in need of funds, he could be a good option. And at 24, he's not quite as young and inexperienced rather as Kelvin Stengs as well, who we've been talking about all season. But our second EFD fixes is also related to the Europa League, because we wanted to ask, after Bayer Leverkusen's exit at the hands of Inter Milan on Monday, Kai Havertz has now seemingly played his final game, and Chelsea are obviously very keen to sign him. Fabrizio Romano, our man in the know, said that the Blues are going to restart talks with Leverkusen and are still confident of reaching an agreement. According to the London Evening Standard, it's really coming down to price now. Chelsea want to pay 70 million, Bayer are holding out for closer to 90 million. Either way, Bayer Leverkusen have got to get planning about who they could bring in the event that Havertz does leave. McCubs, what are you thinking about these potential incomings for Bayer?
Well, obviously, Havertz is such a big loss, partly or predominantly because he's so tactically flexible, right? He's played in so many different positions for them over the last few years. But really what they need is a striker at this moment in time. Maybe not as a direct replacement for him, but to at least replace some of that goal output that they'd be missing with him. Obviously, someone like Karim Demirbay could maybe step up on the creative end. So bringing in a striker, I think, would be pretty essential for them. They only have Kevin Volland and Lucas Alario in terms of out-and-out attackers, or not attackers, out-and-out centre forwards. And they've only managed 17 league goals between them this term. Volland's also out of contract in 2021. So they've got a few options. Parma's Andreas Cornelius might be worth a punt. Obviously, he's coming off an excellent campaign, but maybe a little bit of an unknown entity in terms of going to a new league. Similarly, Andre Silva from AC Milan had a really good end of season on loan at Eintracht Frankfurt, didn't he? But the best option is probably Andrea Belotti, who's obviously, a couple of seasons ago only was being touted with huge moves out of Torino, but he's still there and still only 26. Scored over 10 league goals for the last 5 years, 22 goals in 44 games in 1920. Very solid. 0.65 XG and expected assists per 90 this season as well. So really excellent stuff from him, from a player who we thought was maybe a little bit of a one-trick pony after kind of dropping off in form after, was it 16-17 where he had that really outstanding year. They're also linked with a move to Real Madrid's Reina, who only joined the club in January and has been playing for Castilla, the club's B team. He contributed 8 goals in 711 minutes for Flamengo in 2019. So again, probably a bit of an unknown entity, but in the Bundesliga, perhaps he would flourish. You'd probably expect them to use a portion of the money elsewhere in the squad as well. 6 of their 14 most used players are over the age of 30, so they need to bring that squad age down. And in particular in midfield, you've got the Bender brothers, Aranguiz, Bellarabi, all over 30. So yeah, and also just the way that the Bundesliga transfer market tends to work as well. You don't usually see players coming into the league for, even over 40 million euros usually, do you? And especially if they were to go for some domestic talent, you rarely see players move for over 30 million. So if they can get that 90 million, that gives them a decent amount of scope to really transition that squad and give Peter Bosz some real fresh talent in there. So yeah, what do you reckon, Dukes? Do you reckon? Because I imagine Belotti would probably be the most expensive there. Do you think it would be worth them maybe spending 40-50 million on a talent like him?
Yeah, I'm kind of with what you were going towards the end of, suggesting that they could maybe improve quite a few areas of their squad. I think the Renier loan move from Real Madrid's quite interesting. Obviously had a very good time of it in Brazil with Flamengo, still very young. Bayer Leverkusen have had a lot of success with sort of young Brazilians in the past as well. But yeah, in terms of trying to strengthen a lot of the squad all at once is probably the way forward. I think the positive for them is that they've known about Havertz going on this mega move at some stage for the last 2 or 3 years. So you'd imagine the Bayer Leverkusen transfer team, their recruitment strategy has been centred around how do they move on from him, I should say. So it's going to be absolutely fascinating if Havertz does leave, how Bayer Leverkusen reinvest. But Bayer Leverkusen fans, we want to know from you. Where do you guys think they should spend the money? And is our suggestion of Belotti a good one? Let us know in the comments down below. And let's move on to our final section. Right, it's time for everyone's favourite section. It is back. Transfer shocker. We haven't got rid of it. And we have a quite controversial, potentially controversial one today, McCubs. What's the lowdown?
Yes, Sky Sports News are claiming that Spurs are lining up a shock move for Arsenal's Ainsley Maitland-Niles. We actually covered this a little bit on yesterday's transfer talk over on FD, but we'll do a bit more of a deep dive on it now. Obviously, Maitland-Niles is pretty young, one of the club's probably more valuable assets. And apparently they're willing to let him go, which is maybe a sign of them trying to raise funds for other transfers. The 22-year-old academy graduate featured 32 times this season, most recently in the FA Cup final, where I thought he was pretty brilliant actually, despite him having kind of fallen out of favour a little bit with Arteta in the kind of late part of the season, and apparently he's not really part of his plans moving forward, which I'm pretty surprised about. I thought Arteta would be quite keen on him for his versatility. He's got very good work rate. He's very technically adept as well. Hasn't played anywhere near enough in central midfield for Arsenal since kind of coming through. Obviously been playing in the fullback positions a lot, but as a technical midfielder, he does have kind of all the attributes needed, especially if Ceballos doesn't stay at Arsenal, which has also been kind of rumoured this week that Real are keen to take him back, or keep hold of him as it were. But let's have a look at his Arsenal career in general, because it has been an interesting one. He made his debut all the way back in December 2014. He must have been about 16 at the time, considering he's 22 now. And he's made over 100 appearances since. But he became the Gunners' second youngest player in the competition at the time. Didn't really break through until kind of 17, 18. But he has been a very useful player since then. This season he's made 26 League and Champions League appearances. I guess the others would have been in the FA Cup and League Cup. But after the arrival of Cedric Suarez, now looks to be third choice at right back. So yeah, I can see how he's dropped down the pecking order a little bit in those fullback positions. I guess the midfield has been fairly set as well, with kind of Xhaka and Ceballos kind of coming into their own a little bit more towards the end of the season. So I do get it in that sense, but his age, his clear talent, I don't know. I feel like in another summer, Arsenal would definitely not be making this move. But Dougie, we haven't really spoken about who he's been linked with. It would be a pretty crazy move for him to move across North London to Spurs. Do you not think?
Absolutely. I mean, he'd been joining. Since Sol Campbell, there's only really been William Gallas and Emmanuel Adebayor that I can think of. But no, neither of those transferred directly between the clubs, if memory serves me right. So it would be very much a shock move. But in terms of what he could bring to them, as you say, it's his versatility really. He spent much of the last 18 months playing as a right back. He obviously played as a left back against Chelsea and Man City particularly effectively. in the FA Cup. But as you say, primarily a midfielder. And Jose definitely needs depth in both those fullback slots as well, actually, with Danny Rose seemingly not in his plans. And they haven't had a backup to Serge Aurier all season. Sold Kyle Walker-Peters to Southampton about 10 days ago. And obviously let Kieran Trippier go to Atletico Madrid last summer as well. So their over-reliance on Serge Aurier since his arrival from PSG has kind of left him as a bit of a scapegoat at times. I actually don't think he's quite as bad as people make out. And Ainsley Maitland-Niles is very competent. So in 20 Premier League games in 1920, 4.5 tackles and interceptions, 0.7 key passes, 1.2 dribbles. So maybe not the most attacking option at right back, but Jose will really appreciate that sort of defensive solidity that he can bring. And he's a very good presser too. 19.2 pressures per 90, which actually tops Aurier's 17.3. And that's something that you could never level at Serge Aurier, that he doesn't work hard. He might not be the cleanest in tackles, and some of his decision making might go a little awry. But for Ainsley Maitland-Niles to be making 2 more pressures per 90 is pretty impressive. And with a lot of work to do around the rest of the squad, left back, centre back, striker, Ainsley Maitland-Niles could be a pretty good option for a very cheap fee for Mourinho as he continues the sort of rebuild of Spurs after the Pochettino era. So I'm kind of with you. I think this would be a great pickup for Spurs at relatively little risk and cost. But Arsenal fans, we want to know from you. Obviously, this will be one of your academy graduates going to join your worst enemies. What do you make of that? How will you treat him when he comes back to the Emirates? Let us know in the comments down below. And we advise you treat him very kindly if he does leave as well. He definitely doesn't deserve it. He's just a victim, as McCubs says, of a weird summer for Arsenal. But guys, that's all we've got time for on Transfer Review for this week. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed our new section of EFD fixes. Let us know which transfers you want us to see us cover next week in the comments down below. Although by then they might be a little out of date. But anyway, get down in the comments either way. And McCubs, what should they go and do now?
They should go and check out the Football Pyramid from the weekend. I think it was myself and Henry up against each other.
It was indeed.
If memory serves you correctly. Go and check out that on EFD. Go and check out the latest scout report on Borussia Dortmund, which is excellent too. And go on FD. Go and check out all the videos there too.
Absolutely, and subscribe to the podcast channel as well. Do that now. Guys, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.